I'm honored. I don't know why I sound so angry right now. I'm honored. Am I a
I'm a narcissist. I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years.
This person was born looking a certain way and has a God-given ability to lie for a living. That's really what acting is, to pretend.
In a media firestorm that has left Hollywood shaken and Disney's corporate reputation under siege, actress Rachel Zegler, the once celebrated lead of Disney's high-stakes Snow White remake, has not only vanished from public view, but now finds herself at the center of a $100 million lawsuit filed by the very studio that once positioned her as the face of its next generation. This extraordinary legal battle, combined with Zegler's sudden disappearance and the catastrophic box office failure of the film, has turned what was meant to be a progressive reimagining of a beloved classic into a cautionary tale of modern celebrity, corporate branding, and unchecked public messaging. The story begins with Disney's ambitious plan to modernize its 1937 animated hit, betting on the rising star power of Rachel Zegler to bring fresh energy and Gen Z appeal to a timeless fairy tale. Chosen for her vocal talent and bold persona, Zegler was initially seen as a perfect fit for a politically aware, socially conscious Snow White who would reflect today's values. However, almost immediately after the casting announcement, warning signs began to surface. In early interviews, Zegler made it clear she had little affection for the original film, calling it creepy and criticizing the storyline for its outdated portrayal of romance and gender roles. Her comments didn't land well. As fans who had grown up with the original began to voice their disapproval, Zegler only added fuel to the fire by stating she didn't need a prince and felt the story needed to be corrected. Memes exploded across platforms, with users calling her tone dismissive and ungrateful, questioning how someone could promote a film they openly seemed to dislike. It didn't take long before Disney's marketing team realized the actress they'd hoped would spearhead a cultural moment was rapidly alienating the very audience they were targeting. Social media erupted with backlash. Clips of Zegler's interviews were remixed into parody reels. Entire comment threads devolved into debates over whether she was a poor choice for the role or just a victim of overexposure. In an attempt to save the narrative, Disney reportedly brought in crisis management experts and placed Zegler under the guidance of PR handlers ahead of her European press tour. But despite the studio's efforts, Zegler's behavior remained unpredictable. During the tour, she doubled down on her critiques, even referencing the need to be paid for every hour she wore the Snow White dress, including breaks. Viewers interpreted this as entitlement, and once again, her remarks went viral. Behind the scenes, Disney executives were growing restless. Internal memos flagged the marketing campaign as a growing liability, and analytics began tying her interview clips directly to negative audience sentiment and reduced ticket pre-sales. Executives convened emergency meetings and began assessing potential fallout. Eventually, the breaking point came in the form of a late-night political post from Zegler, published against the wishes of studio heads, which further polarized fans and drew renewed criticism from previously neutral observers. As the press tour unraveled and test screenings failed to spark enthusiasm, Disney's legal team began examining clauses in Zegler's contract. What they found was a morals clause, typically reserved for extreme misconduct, that allowed the studio to hold talent financially accountable for reputational damage. Believing the threshold had been met, Disney filed a lawsuit seeking $100 million in restitution, citing that Zegler's public actions had directly contributed to the film's declining commercial prospects. The industry was stunned. Studios rarely sue their own stars, and the legal move was interpreted by many as both a warning shot and a desperate attempt at damage control. Yet what happened next made things even stranger. Just days after the lawsuit went public, Rachel Zegler vanished. No red carpet, no statements, not even a post. Then came the whispers. Flight logs from a private charter jet showed a single anonymous passenger heading to Dubai. Paparazzi staked out her Los Angeles residence, capturing shots of an empty driveway and shuttered windows. Rumors began circulating that Zegler had fled the country to avoid the legal circus, prompting speculation across entertainment news outlets. Fans started tracking her possible locations through photos posted by others. convinced they had spotted her at luxury boutiques or upscale restaurants abroad. Meanwhile, Disney scrambled to recover what it could. Merchandise based on the film was quietly pulled from stores. Fast food partners reduced Snow White-themed toy orders. Even cruise ship adaptations that had been planned to coincide with the film's release were canceled. Internally, leadership faced mounting pressure from shareholders as the box office opening loomed. Marketing budgets had ballooned, PR costs had doubled, and now their lead actress was MIA. Opening weekend brought the worst-case scenario to life. Snow White landed in second place behind a modestly budgeted video game adaptation that had faced none of the controversy, marketing blunders, or fan fatigue that plagued Disney's reboot. That film, based on blocky graphics and retro pixel charm, became an overnight sensation, with families flocking to theaters for its humor and nostalgia. Snow White, by contrast, drew tepid reviews, dismal attendance, and a cold social media reception. Audiences described the film as preachy, confused, and lacking the emotional core that made the original beloved. The financial fallout hit fast. Disney stock dipped. Investors flooded earnings calls with angry questions. Marketing teams were overhauled. And for the first time in decades, Disney's brand of magic looked alarmingly mortal. As damage reports piled up, the studio entered closed-door negotiations with Zegler's team. Leaks suggested discussions of a settlement that would allow her to repay part of the damages through future income, streaming royalties, theater earnings, or branded appearances. But public sentiment remained raw. Zegler briefly resurfaced with a single photo. Her seated calmly at an outdoor cafe in a scenic European locale captioned, "Still learning." For some, it was a humble olive branch. For others, another tone-deaf move. Disney's legal team, however, used the post to pursue international service rights, aiming to extend their lawsuit's reach across borders. Meanwhile, the legal spectacle itself had become content. TikTokers dissected court filings. Podcasts debated whether corporations had gone too far. Industry insiders warned this case could redefine how actors are held accountable for their words. As spring wore on, reports emerged of a tentative resolution, one that would see Zegler commit to charity work, adhere to a public silence clause, and gradually repay the damages over time, essentially converting the debt into a long-term royalty model. For Disney, it meant regaining face with Wall Street. For Zegler, it meant the slimmest path to redemption. Yet the damage had been done. Disney executives, shaken by the ordeal, announced a creative reset. Remakes would be slowed, original content would be prioritized, and future stars would be required to undergo what insiders now call Princess Boot Camp, a rigorous, months-long media training program to prevent future PR disasters. The Snow White remake, once intended to usher in a new era, had instead become a textbook case of everything that can go wrong when corporate ambition, influencer culture, and unchecked ego collide. And while Rachel Zegler's future remains uncertain, her name will likely be remembered not for the role she played, but for the role she was forced to play in one of Hollywood's most high-profile meltdowns.